like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. Hail Satan. Oh, we use GarageBand. We just
There is nothing wrong with Garage.
No, there's not. Like you can get a lot of, if you can send it to somebody with a better DAW and they can fucking rock the
What's a
shit out.
DAW?
Digital audio workspace.
Yes,
or
sir.
something like
That's
that.
it.
Is that it?
Yep.
Shit, I got
That's
it right.
it.
I just
Just somewhere in
see,
that brain.
and that's
you
just
had
for me,
it.
just hearing it from people, and I've asked that question multiple times over like the years, and just I guess it stuck.
Yeah.
See, that's what I was talking about before. That like now music theory, you got to know this type of shit also.
Yeah.
In addition
Yeah.
to music.
This is that terminology is very important in like the audio mixing world. Well, not very important. It's just it's there in the audio mixing world. Like just knowing what a DAW is, what stems are, what all this shit is, and how it works. Like, and this is very basic GarageBand stuff. But like that, man, that is a whole music theory in and of itself. Like,
So I guess I have a question then to for everybody. When did you all get first introduced to music theory, or I guess a form of music theory?
But here's the thing: all music is music theory. You just might not know the actual terminology and stuff.
All right, so dude, I guess when did you find out and realize, oh, this is music theory?
okay, so
When did you make the connection?
Well, let's look up music theory in the dictionary.
well, here's
Okay.
here's the thing. We were kind of discussing that earlier about
right
like
now.
music theory is like it is an idea. Yeah,
You
that's
can
my
just take that. Yeah.
okay. Music theory.
I got
So
that.
like
You
there's
keep
like the
talking, yeah.
Western, tonal harmony music theory, which is like the shit that Bach and Beethoven and like Western music theory, which is like all the notes, the treble clef, bass clef, but there's like tons of different other music ideas, you could even call them.
So it says here that, and this is Wikipedia, so it must.
Okay.
Wikipedia.
The most credible.
Music theory is the study of practices and possibilities of music.
All right.
So I guess it's about combinations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is like it was, in the way Americans use it
Because before you got here, Jacob, we were talking about it because
in Western.
for me as a drummer, like I know like you guys playing instruments, like you guys know notes and stuff. So for me, I was telling them like when I hear music theory, I think of like modes, scales, stuff like that. But they were like, oh no, like that's like Mike was saying, like there's like rhythms is music theory, like polyrhythms, like all that stuff is music theory. So like you like playing drums, like there's certain, of course, there's aspects of drums that is music theory. And so like I learned that today. Like to me, I thought music theory was like about like notes and like scales and like
Yeah. I mean, that is.
arpeggios and
Yeah.
all this other stuff.
But that's just a part of music theory. Music
Yeah.
theory is like the exact. I guess it's if you
it's
think
a
about
s-
it, it's almost like math.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
system. It's an idea, and it's utilized to make music in a way that's normal, if that makes sense. Oh, it doesn't even have to
A
be normal, but
standard.
like, yeah, it's just a way that people use. It's a tool. It's a mechanism to create music. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the
and
basic,
make it easier for people
easiest way.
to communicate. Like technically,
yeah.
you could speak to another human in like a person from China. You could you could easily like communicate in a million ways. Language is just one of them. If you don't speak the same language as another person and you pick up an instrument, you could still communicate with them.
It's crazy.
Yeah, like
Universal.
Yeah.
what's also interesting is like, so like there's a video that talks about music theory or Western music theory, because like that's the treble clef, bass clef, all the notes, the chords and everything, and a lot of stuff comes from that, like all the shit that we use, like the way we think about music, like all right, everybody stop on the one, like that comes from Western music theory, and like an E or an A, like that's all
So
Western.
so India wouldn't have A's, E's, and
it wouldn't it translates, I guess. I don't know enough about what even it's called, but I know India has like a different.
this is fascinating. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Well, it's
Now
not
I know
just
what I'm
India.
Googling
There's
tonight.
in Indonesia there's a type of music called gamelan, and I'll show you it in a second. But gamelan is like this like xylophone looking thing, and they use these hammers, and the tone and the notes that they use don't register. It's like flat notes or sharp
Oh.
notes, and it's like quarter tone notes,
Interesting.
which I don't know if
I mean, the
that means
sitar. You look at
anything.
that. There's so many different like
Yeah, well, like it's just
frets and shit.
I really wish I knew enough about it to tell you
Well, we
what
could-
it
we
is,
could
but
look,
I
yeah.
essentially there's differences as far as like how they communicate how to do something
Yeah.
musically in comparison to how a Western or some person that knows Western music
Yeah.
theory. So
Correct.
like
Yeah.
I know there is a correlation with like, you know, do re mi fa sol la ti do, and then Indians. Well, I'm sorry, not Indians, but
No, Indian.
well, it's not just Indian people. It's like it's a music theory
Oh.
that comes from India, and it's for anybody, I guess. But like they would utilize they have like a different word for it. It's like it's matter of fact. Let's see, Indian.
And after this, I got a question from Micah.
And I hope it's Indian music
Well,
theory. It might be
oh,
something
yeah,
else.
well, let's keep
Yeah.
it for hold on.
Indian classical music. Let's see. Hindu.
Hindustani.
Let's see if that has anything to do with it.
What were you gonna
Is
ask?
it classical?
Well, I was going to ask you, for you, I guess, what kind of connections have you seen, I guess, maybe from a music theory standpoint, going from playing the drums to, like, playing guitar?
Oh,
And, like
shit.
in rhythms and stuff. Like, what kind of...
I feel like I already know half the shit before that didn't need to be taught to me. But we'll get to that in a second. Yeah.
So here are some characteristics of Indian classical music. Indian classical music has 7 basic notes with 5 interspersed.
Interspersed.
Sorry, I'm dumb.
Dyslexic.
Half notes, yeah. Half notes have with 5 interspersed half notes, resulting in a 12-note scale, unlike the 12-note scale in Western music. The bass frequency of the scale is not fixed. Okay, that's interesting because like the bass frequency of a scale, like an A, like if I get up there and I play that A, it's an A, and it's a fixed frequency dialed in by you know
Okay.
a tuner that I guess is like you know it's with 440. Is it 440 hertz?
It's 440, but it used to be something different.
Yeah, it's like 438.
Who
or something
changes
like that?
it? Like,
The
how
Pope,
did that
I think.
Really?
I'm not, do I, that's
No,
something
no, no,
like
no,
that.
recently
because
found out
no,
about
no,
that.
no, no.
Too.
Christianity has a big connection between Western
Oh,
music.
yeah.
They created sheet music. You know, like
We did. That was
Yeah.
our first podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something like that where it the church definitely
So
influences.
that's why when
like,
you said the Pope, I'm like, really? It could
Yeah,
be
it
the
could
Pope.
be.
It could be him.
But
It was
no,
like,
it
fuck
was-
it, it's
it
30
was-
hertz, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
It was like a few years ago.
And gays can
like
get married.
30. Yeah. It was like.
Those are like the two things he gets to do.
Yeah. It's 440 hertz, and the Palestinians aren't that bad. No. But yeah, like in Western music theory, 440 hertz A, it's like it's a fixed idea, and when I play an A at this hertz at this frequency, that's what makes the A. And so I'm guessing, I have no clue about this Indian scale, is that unlike the 12-note scale in Western music, the bass frequency of the scale is not fixed. And intertonal gaps may also vary. The performance is set to a melodic pattern called a raga, characterized in part by specific accent, aroha, and descent, and that's called avaroha sequences, king vadi and queen samavadi notes and characteristic phrases.
Yeah. So what are we learning here?
So I'm guessing that like it's
It's
going
its
to
own
the
graph. It's the same notes on a different graph or on a different grid or something.
well, it's I think that like you could try to fix it on a Western music music theory. like if somebody showed you Indian music theory and like Indian music, you can like look and at the notes that they're using and put it on a scale, but some of them you couldn't if they're going off of it doesn't have a base frequency of the scale. Like if they're
So
using
a
a note.
guitar can't play certain notes that are in the Indian scale.
I mean, it's not. It's you could come pretty close, I guess. It's just like if they're using a system that's in play where they're like, you know, a note that's within the Indian music theory is in between, say like an A and a B flat.
I see.
That's literally half tone right there.
What
Or,
about like slide guitar? Well, I guess slide guitar, like Derek Trucks.
yeah,
will get
you could
Indian sounding
you can
sometimes.
kind of incorporate it because it's like I mean, in between these tones, like an A and a B flat, are like
Very cool.
semitones. You know, you ever heard of microtonal guitars?
I've
or
heard
like-
of microtonal music.
Yeah, microtonal music.
What is that?
Pull up a picture of a microtonal guitar.
Yeah,
I'll
What
have
is
to
that?
like put it
What is
in.
microtonal music. What is that?
It's like Gary played me some of that when we were working on the
Yeah.
at the Halloween thing. It's like it kind of sounds like slide guitar. What they'll do is they use digital shit to hit notes that they can't hit on guitar, like in between notes.
yeah. Here we
Oh.
go. So like you see this
Yeah.
fret? Yeah, this fretboard right
This
here.
fret breaks the fret into 3
Right.
mini frets.
It's called quarter tones, I think. So there's like a whole tone, or let me make sure. So, yeah, a whole tone. It goes from A to B, or C to
What do
D.
they sound like?
What, a microtonal?
Yeah.
It's just like an A, like it's like
Yeah.
out of tune. A, it's like it's just like slightly out of tune sounding. But there's like it's like
How long has that been around?
I don't know, probably since sound's been around, but it's as far as this invention of the microtonal guitar, I don't know.
Yeah, we came up with the system, but it's a fretless world.
Yeah. Well, like I was gonna say, just because like a punk rock musician is playing punk rock doesn't mean he's utilizing Western music theory. So like I think of stuff like this, or like people using slide guitar. It's just like I don't think that people are consciously using Western tonal harmony in order to they're not thinking in their head like, oh yes, I'm playing.
Well, we were talking
know.
about that, like Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain on "Smells Like Teen
Oh,
Spirit."
yeah.
Like that's like you were saying is like a really complex melody from a
Mhm.
musical theory standpoint, but he didn't know that shit.
Yeah. No,
Just
that's
probably doing something.
You
I know.
I thought
know.
that was cool. It was like, oh, this sounds
Yeah.
cool. I'm
And
gonna
that
do this.
goes to more on his approach, which is like less theory, more just a feeling.
Yeah. And that really is kind of what most people do, honestly, is like we're not utilizing it in a way that's. I mean, some musicians do. Some people are very aware of like what notes they're using and how to get from this to that to, something that sounds pleasing to the Westerner's ear.
Well, I think
Um,
even to like what y'all are saying and taking it like a step further, I think that's I think it almost kind of ties into with like technique and feeling. Like you can have technique, like have really good technique, but not really have feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like you could be like, it's more so like I guess I kind of refer to it like as someone being like classically trained versus like someone kind of like learning by ear and learning like.
Well, if you go on YouTube, there is 20 guitars who are technically better than Jimi Hendrix. But like no one cares about them because the feeling's not there.
Yeah.
You know.
I think it's almost like what Jack said, like kind of like with BB King, which is like he kind of plays a lot of the same notes,
Yeah.
same kind of patterns, but it's how he does it,
Mm-hmm.
which is what makes it that feel. It's like that you get that feeling kind of thing.
Yeah. And we talked about that a while ago.
Yeah. I remember talking about that. Yeah. I think today is like old podcast material day. We just bring up stuff. from
Yeah,
old
we just
podcasts.
bring up all the
Conversations.
7 of the other
It's
ones.
new to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah. But what I
Feel
think
free to
is
just interject.
yeah, I was gonna
All
say.
right, I'll interject right now. How does a bird write a song?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. But do you think that the birds
Thinking outside the
are
box.
communicating, or are they singing like leisurely? Like,
Well, they are trying to get laid.
yeah, that's part. but do you think it's like, lady, when you're with me?
I'll say this. So like, you could take the notes that a bird is singing and like put it to a piano, or if anything, probably more likely a semitonal guitar or guitar with microtones, because like, I'm sure that bird's not utilizing Western tonal harmony in his head. But
Do
that's
birds in India have different songs than birds? Because like maybe it's
Possibly.
influenced
Good
by
point.
the.
yeah, but I don't think that they're utilizing.
or
They're
vice
not.
versa.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I don't think.
I don't think that it's it could be like the birds in India sound more like
Western.
Westerners and the
Yeah.
birds here sound more like
Yeah.
Indian stuff. There's the other music theory that I'm aware of that I brought up a little while ago was gamelan music. And so like gamelan it's not really enjoyable to me.
Oh, come on.
I mean no when I say
You know what it is?
Yeah, they had it at my college.
Oh,
is
did
it?
they?
They would do the
Yeah.
performance with the shadow puppets.
What is
Okay,
it?
Yeah.
cool. It's like this little box, and it's like a xylophone type thing, and they have these hammers.
Okay.
It's cool. I don't like listen to it. I shouldn't say it like it's not enjoyable. That was the wrong way to categorize that. I enjoy when I saw it because like
Show me.
we had somebody bring one.
What's it called? I'll look. Keep talking.
Gamelan. I think it's like- yeah.
Gamelan.
Yeah. But this stuff is not utilizing Western tonal harmony at all. And I don't
Okay.
even think that you can they have like microtones in between the, Western notes that we've
It's Indonesian.
made up.
Do you need multiple people for it?
It's really kind of like I mean, I don't know much about it, but it's like a opera with the shadow puppets. The shadow puppets seem to be a pretty integral aspect of it, but maybe they're not.
So opera is its own style of music, but it's also a play. So this is also a play.
Yeah, I believe. Well, probably what I know about it is just knowing about a specific instance of gamelan. But
This is so cool.
It is cool.
But this would be cool to like then sample on a rap song or an EDM, like
it's
take-
not enough for you in the raw.
I don't like. I mean, it's cool as fuck. I would totally.
Imagine the dew, the warm dew on your head.
I mean, I'm
You're
thinking to
sitting there,
myself
you've
on
been
acid.
there for 14
what?
hours.
See,
Because they're long.
My problem
They're
was
long. They're
Oh.
14 hours,
No, they're making it pretty long.
and you can't like cough in the middle, right? Like,
There's a toad with its teeth in your neck.
and that's the only way to
I
experience
know,
it.
right?
that I do.
You're not doing it. This isn't actually gamelan because we're not there participating. It's only there with the frog in our neck. That's when it's gamelan. No, we had a teacher bring in one, and that's why I was not as cool because he was like playing on it, and then like we were just like, oh, okay, cool.
This is
But we
sound
saw a lot of
terrible.
videos like
It
this.
almost sounds like those like toy xylophones, like kids, like the taller ones you got for kids. That's what it sounds like, kind of.
There's
Yeah,
actually. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say it almost sounds like it's not. It doesn't make sense, but then you look, and they're all doing the same notes together, and you realize that it's actually planned. Like they're in sync playing. You see what I'm saying? Like two people are hitting at the same time, but the notes don't still don't sound good.
I think this shit slaps, frankly. Like, there is this. There's a thing going on. There's a
Yeah.
groove to it.
I really enjoy that it's like a group effort thing, and like it's a.
So
It's
question then. I wonder, like,
a cool
in this case,
aesthetic.
I guess it's kind of like, I guess you could consider like they're all in sync and they all. So how do you teach that? Is there sheet music for that, or is it kind of like you just kind of like follow along and like just learn the patterns?
Well, how do they teach it at church?
With that, I mean, most of the time you either listen to it or you just kind of go like off of like a feeling. You kind of, you can listen to it and you can be like, like for instance, like if Brody was here right now and he started playing a bass line, like you could play a beat to that bass line just based
Well, what
off.
about Brody? Brody playing a bass, like how if you don't play bass, which I imagine most people start out at church don't play an instrument when they're
You start off playing something, and you just kind of, but you kind of start off, I guess, what you gravitate to. Like some people gravitate toward bass, some people, like most people gravitate toward drums. So
Yeah,
like
I
most
figured.
people, like as kids growing up in church, like they normally will, as kids, will sit behind the drummer with like drumsticks in their hand, like beat on their leg and beat,
Drums
and try to
are
like
just
mimic
cooler.
what he's doing.
Yeah.
and then you get to a point to where you actually sit down on a drum set, and then because you've been watching him, you try to mimic what he does, and then from there you just kind of build until like you're actually playing drums. I think it's almost the same thing like with keys. It's like you kind of like watch it, and you kind of like fum around, and then you kind of start to formulate chords, and then from there like you just kind of keep building on it. But I mean, to answer your question, I brought it like now. I mean, for any of us, like if someone started playing a guitar riff or anything like right now, based off the music that we've heard like over like a span of our lives, you can like you said, like it's a universal thing, so you can kind of play along with it. And then once you, then like and then like if I was playing with Jacob and I was playing drums and he's playing guitar, and if he switched up the rhythm, I could hear that, and then I could switch it up and play. It may not be the rhythm that's right for what he's playing. Like he may be actually playing a song, and what I'm playing may not be the actual rhythm from that song, but it's something that matches what he's playing.
Yeah,
and like it will complement like what he's playing.
That's interesting, because then we're thinking about like it might not be the right rhythm or something, but it's the rhythm that we're making is the only rhythm that gets communicated.
Yeah,
and like
and that goes to like your point. You're saying like with that, like there's a groove to it, so it's just like I've never heard this before, but just based off my experiences from Western music, I could probably I would listen for a pattern. I would listen for like certain stuff, like a pattern. It's like, okay, I can play something that it may not be the right thing, but it will go like for instance, like if I've never heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit," you start playing it, I can play a beat to it. It's not going to be the beat from the song that was written for it, but it'd be something like similar that will at least complement it to where like it doesn't clash.
You can get the feeling of it.
Yeah, basically. So like something like this, and I think that's why, like to your point, we're saying like music is universal, because to this, it's like you listen for certain patterns, and I said then when you listen to it and you're listening, if they switch it up, you can kind of follow along with them.
This looks though like it was synchronized, or it was more prepared in advance, whereas like this doesn't look improvised.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well,
I was wondering, like, how do they teach that?
It's
like,
not
is it sheet music, or is it like you just kind of like?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there is a system that's in play, and it's a music theory that they are aware of. Say what now?
The Indian number system.
Yeah.
No, but
Well, this is Indonesia, but either way, like, yeah, it's a music theory that I know very, very little about. I just know what it looks like.
Yeah, but it's all rhythm, so it could just be like.
Well, there's also harmony. I mean, they're hidden. Yeah. It's rhythm, harmony, and like, you remember the Ben Shapiro video where he was talking about rap's not music because it only satisfies 2 out of 3 things, which is bullshit.
What was the second thing?
Oh, say what?
What was the second thing? You said 2 out of 3 things. What was the second thing?
No, it was supposed to be melody, harmony, and rhythm. And he said rap. Oh, he said rap only satisfies one of those. It only fills one of those, which is not true.
Because
how many does he satisfy?
Well, either way, this is the point. First off, his logic is extremely flawed because he's basing it off of Western tonal harmony. So, like, if you're basing it off of Western harmony, well, honestly, you could probably figure. First off, that right there is a pitch. That's a pitch. Me talking. You ever seen those videos of like people like talking and somebody's playing the notes that they're saying?
Yeah.
Like
coronavirus,
yeah. Like every note in it's semitones, quarter tones, whatever. But like everything that you say and do, like there's talking. There's notes within every sound, and that's not even like that's not really a Western tonal harmony idea, but that's like a modified new version, I would say. Yeah. But or it's a music theory that's relevant, to say, in my opinion. And this is why I say like he's very wrong, because yeah, obviously there's rhythm. There's also melody. Like you have to have like some kind of melody track in the back. And when you're rapping, you're talking, or not really. You're not talking. You're like rapping, and it's like you're using a certain tone,
Yeah.
And there are choruses that have melody and that have harmony.
Yeah, you're right. And also, like, even if it doesn't, sound pretty, if it's not a third, like, just technically, if you're speaking, there's tonal there's tonality happening.
Yeah.
When you're speaking, you're creating a note that you could replicate on an instrument, quite frankly.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
One day I was having Carl, my friend, to play bass, and we were having a conversation at the church one day, and we were talking about, and I made the correlation of, because I naturally I talk fast, and so for years even if, and it took practice working with a metronome, but for years because I would hear, when you on stage and you're playing with a band and stuff, if you got to rehearse these songs, when the drummer counts it off, if you don't have a metronome, you're singing the song in your head, okay, blah blah blah, okay, this is the tempo, and then you count it off.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I would count, I would hear it in my head faster, and I would always count things off faster than what they were, or rush it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had this epiphany. I was just man, I bet I do that because I talk fast. And he lit up and he said, it's funny because he said when he studied music in college, he said his music teachers used to always say, you can tell a lot about how a person plays their instrument by how they talk. So if they talk fast, more than likely most of the times they're going to probably rush things. If they're more chill and laid back, they may drag stuff or kind of be, but you can tell a lot by how people talk. That'll tell you a lot about how they play their instrument.
Okay. I've heard famous musicians say that when they're on stage jamming, or specifically more jam bands or jazz musician types, they'll say I don't listen to my own shit, I'm listening to everybody else.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean that's
so the people who talk and just say what they who don't listen to the conversation, you could tell how they're gonna
musically
be
that's probably how most people get their music theory, is listening to other artists, listening to other musicians, listening to gamelan, listening to people all over the world make music. And so when you see people do something and you copy it and you emulate it and make your own thing, which inarguably is what most people do.
We all
I just don't know how many people are utilizing in their head Western tonal harmony, and they may be utilizing the tools unbeknownst to them, tuning the guitar to standard tuning and playing a song in G, but it's just fickle, because you could have some classical guy listen to you play a Garth Brooks song, and he can tell you everything that's going on in the song, and he could say, this is a song because, or this is a music piece because it has notes and this and rhythm, all that shit. But I find it really strange how they couldn't hear rain drop, or not think that that's music as well, because you ever
hear a rain stick?
Can he tell you why that Garth Brooks song is sad?
Yeah, well, maybe depends who they are, if they know how to understand that. But what I'm really trying to say is just because it's not utilizing actively, or it's utilizing something completely different than Western tonal harmony, doesn't mean that it's not music. And also it's a very interesting way to just make different sounds. And I think that kind of stuff is more interesting.
Or something.
I think that kind of stuff is more interesting than just learning and talking about music theory, because I think when I think about music theory, I'm thinking about talking about rules. But I think that I'm more drawn to bending those rules, and that means learring the rules of something else. Yeah. Instead of talking about oh well, that A, you should go to E and that'll be a 1/5, and then you go to A, oh shit, I'm fucking up, D, and then you go to have a plagal cadence from D to A, and that would make musical sense. That really is the language that some people use when they talk about classical music or even country stuff like that. But either way, I just think that it's just not concrete. I don't think it's the best way to do things.
That stuff's new to me. So to me, that's like, a frontier in my understanding of music because I never studied it before. And so,
And look at you, Drake. Look how you turned out, man. You turned out just fine.
thanks.
I like the shirt.
Hey, thank you. I was thinking about our shirts
Oh yeah,
together. Yeah, we could live in the same world.
Bamboos and fish.
Yeah.
Mike over here in our comfort color zone. Well,
know,
I'm
right?
not a comfort color, but he is
But like
faded.
I never charted a song until I got to Nashville and like thought about like, oh, the 1, the 2, the 5 and all that stuff. But and that was cool because
Was it tough for you to learn originally?
No, the national number system is beautifully simple, I think. And I think that's why it's like the mode of, like the bar scene in Nashville.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's pretty similar to like the real book and the fake book and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right, in jazz. And that, it's got to be practical. It's not for the pure math. It's for the like applied math.
Yeah, it's like instead of learning the algebra and the geometry and the trig, it's like Nashville system is like 1 + 2 =
Yeah, and I think a lot of
3.
players went and learned the geometry and the trig beforehand.
Yeah.
But you can learn that stuff a lot of different ways. I feel like I have a good, or like I'm always trying to improve my learning of it, and sometimes studying that theory is a good way to do it. Like pick up a little bit. It helps reinforce all the other ways I've learned all that stuff. It's one tool.
Yeah. No, it's I would definitely say that I was really big into it. It's in Troy. I was really big into jazz, and I just thought that if I learned as much music theory as possible, I would become the best jazz player, and that didn't turn out to be that way. But it definitely helps. Like your knowledge and like especially like playing with other people because it's like once you start learning the theory and like learning music theory and learning tricks, as I like to say, like what a flat 7 is or like a flat 6 to a flat 7, like it's a cool little trick, but it's like abnormal borrowed chords in the classical world, but like people utilize it all the time, and like people don't know how to talk about that, or some people don't.
That's me.
Yeah, but you can do it, which is
Or you
cool
could probably,
anyways.
You could pick it out of it. You could be like, hey, let's use this chord that's like from this Beatles song. It's like famous from this song.
And see, but I have to do that. I have to do that. Like for instance, like if we're in a band situation and I hear something, I have to be like, it's a thing where you go up a note or you do this and you be like we're going up like a whole note, half note, and I play it. Let me hear what it sounds like, and then you play it and be like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But I have to rely on like people like you guys that like play notes and be like, I hear it, but I don't know how to articulate it and tell you. Or I have to pull up a song and be like, it does it like right here. And you'd be like, oh, it's basically this.
You probably have your own cool way of talking as a drummer.
It's gibberish. I mean, I try to articulate it the best way I can, Yeah. And then like you guys will look at me and be like, "You mean like a flat 7, Craig, or something?"
So to answer,
yeah, I like play it. Like,
and then you're like,
that's it.
Yeah.
So to answer your question from before, you said like going from guitar to drums. I feel like when I was watching like just starting out, and you're watching YouTube videos on like how to play songs and stuff, they're always like, okay, so it's gonna be like 2 strokes down. Well, I didn't need to learn any of the strokes or anything because like I already understood rhythms.
Yeah.
So like the only thing I really needed to learn was how to play that chord. You end up learning like an A chord. If you play on the offbeat, reggae. If you play like with a shuffle, blues. If like it's really rhythm ends up being what kind of changes the whole thing for most. And then you get into like Indian and like klezmer, where it's like these completely different notes.
But I think on the other hand, though, too, like for you guys talking to me, it's almost like when you guys are trying to describe like a drum beat, it's almost like either people will like kind of like kind of tap it out or like kind of like beatbox it, or they'll be like, think of like a Steve Jordan or like a Questlove,
Yeah.
making like this dirty, sloppy thing, kind
Can
of
you
like
do a Jay Dilla beat?
yeah, be on the beat, or like he's like kind of like a little bit behind the beat, and but off of that, like you said, like to them, I guess they feel like they're talking gibberish to me, but I get it, I understand it. So it's like
I
Okay.
think it should be arbitrary to say that music is a language. And I think that, like you were talking about, you don't know what to say, but like you tell them, like, I don't know about the flat seven, but you should sound like this, and you sing it or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a way to communicate it.
Yeah.
You know, if I go up and talk to somebody that only speaks Spanish, which literally happened to me the other day, I was talking to him for a little while, and I like knew a few words, and I was trying to ask him, if he had a translation app,
yeah, that's what a lot of people do.
and I was like, cellular application, and I tried to say application, and he like understood it, which application in Spanish is like applicación, or like
Yeah.
something
Applicación.
very similar.
I literally would like pull up my
Yeah.
phone and like point it to it, like
Yeah.
like this
But
app, you have this app,
But
like,
here's the thing: I communicated it to him, and he didn't know, but what word I was using, but he knew what I said, like
Yeah.
application in Spanish, and he was like application, and I was like, yeah, that was it, and
Oh,
so like,
applicación.
yeah, I can't remember. It's like
It's all
slightly
tone,
different.
too.
It's slightly different, but like, yeah, the pointing at the
that's the beauty
phone,
of
the body
Spanish, like, there's
language,
some words that
so
are,
many
like, that are
things.
close
Yeah.
to English,
Too.
they just have their own-
Construction,
Yeah,
and then
they have
like
like their own
acción.
thing, yeah, to it.
I guess where music theory might come in is like, y'all familiar with the Voyager Golden Record? Or like, and the Voyager spacecraft, we sent this out to space.
Oh,
couple
yeah,
decades
yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
There's a record with songs on it,
I didn't
and
know this.
there's also engraved in a plate is basically science's at the time best guess at how to communicate.
explain,
Yeah,
yeah.
to
But they use
a
classical.
creature. Yeah, but then not just like on the stuff on that record, but like how to explain to an alien life form. I think like how to play the record, or like what, or where the Voyager came from.
Yeah.
That it came from this planet with people and stuff. And I guess music theory, you know, being like a relationship between tones that's a little more math based, maybe it's like that one is like is the best hope for communicating music to an alien, where it's like if you can give like a tiny window into it and there's a glimpse of understanding, then they can crack the whole rest of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas they wouldn't be able to just play a Jay Dilla beat unless
Yeah.
we sent them Jay Dilla.
Right.
But the craziness behind music theory is that most musicians historically did not know it.
Yeah.
And yet we've gotten so some musicians have done some complex shit, and like we're still able to communicate that with, you know.
I was an English major, and you know, there's a lot of talk and writing about the theory of, you know, what happens in poetry and novels and all that stuff. It doesn't mean most poets and novelists, you know, studied in the academy and learned all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like
That's why I
we're
hate
studying-
critics, dude, because they end up saying like, "Oh, so what he's saying here," and most of the time they're like, "I didn't fucking say that. That's not at all what I said."
You can't prove it.
Well, another thing is, talking about musicians that didn't know theory but they were really good, was like they knew a little bit of a theory that was relative to like some Western, you know, tonal harmony stuff that comes from, you know, Germany. But honestly, like they learned it from rule breakers already. So like what I'm gonna get to is like, you know, jazz is an American, you know, genre.
So punk.
And yeah, and it essentially was a lot of black musicians in New Orleans that, and I'm really simplifying and generalizing this, and I'm sure there's a much more complicated history, but a lot of black musicians learned like Western tonal harmony for classical music, and yet there would be different ideas implemented amongst these black musicians that was also influenced by.
You're out.
Yeah, you're good, bro. We'll see you, man.
Hey, good to see you, Craig.
Yes, sir. Good to see you, Craig. Craig out. But
I'll get that from you.
Be safe, man.
it was just it was breaking the rules that were, you know, set in stone by these European musicians from, the 18th century.
Yeah.
So, blues and Irish music. A lot of Irish music is
Bluegrass.
yeah,
Which is then
bluegrass
country.
Yeah, it's heavily influenced by Irish music.
Well, that's
but
the
also
crazy
there's
thing
there's Irish music that's got like theories of how they play rhythms and stuff. Like there's a difference in like a slip jig and a jig and a reel, and it's like I think it's essentially like 2/4 or 3/4, but it's like they wouldn't communicate it like that in fucking 19th century Ireland.
Yeah.
It was communicated
In
a
potatoes.
jig.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How many fist fights? 4 fist fights beat. Just kidding.
4 punch.
Yeah.
And a beer.
But it's just it comes from somewhere, but it's also not the same thing as what Bach and all these European
How much
musicians
music
do.
theory, when you, Jack, who knows a lot of theory, when you're writing a song, how much do you go to your music theory and how much do you try to avoid that?
So I think it's not it's like saying, first off, I don't know a lot of music theory, but
As someone who has a degree in music.
yeah, I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. I have. Well, I do. It's a associates.
You've probably
But-
internalized a fair amount.
That's
Wait, you
what I
went
was
to
gonna
school
say.
for
It's
music?
like- it's
Wait,
like
you don't have a
saying-
degree in it, but you went to school for it?
Yeah,
How does that work?
I didn't graduate.
Oh, you didn't graduate? Good
Yeah.
for you. It's all a scam anyways.
Yeah. Anyways, so
He did it for him, not
that's
for
right.
them.
But they also just got poor really fast and needed to
How many years did you do there?
too long.
6.
Yeah, actually.
Serious?
Yeah, that was it. But
Van Wilder.
um
Van Halen
what was I trying
Wilder.
to say? Oh, so I'm
Sorry.
I'm trying.
I make
I was
myself
trying to think what I was talking about. Oh, utilizing music theory and like songwriting and stuff. Like it's like you said, it's already internalized and like, it's like saying how, you must utilize the English language to write a poem. It's like but I'm not like thinking like as much.
No,
I think-
I'll just
Yeah.
one last thing. Fine. No, you say it. You go.
No.
Maybe that's.
I
a
was
bad-
just
We're going to say
wait.
the same thing anyway. Let's say it at the same time.
No.
I
not
get that.
Go. You
Go.
go. I work with English every day, and like I'm always like, oh, I need to use a verb here or something. Like I know the techniques. Like I happen to know why what they're looking for when they ask me to do something. I'm like, okay, I need to use this type of verbiage. Like I need to.
I'm already realizing I used a false equivalency, and I
Yeah. Go on. Now
shouldn't
you.
say it, yeah.
I was going to say that I think it might be important to note that the study of music theory is pretty old school and definitely predates recordings. And I think that since recordings came along, the best and most efficient way to learn music theory is just by listening to music. Because you just absorb it. Like, if I've been listening to like a lot of Joni Mitchell, then like the next thing I write has access to the vocabulary that she deals with a lot more.
Yeah, but you also, if you learn a language, say like if you learn English, you learn at a real young age like how to speak and how to talk to people. But say you never learned how to read and write and like what those, how to pronunciate those words properly. It would be more efficient and like you would know more of the language if you learn to read, learn to write, in comparison to just learned how to speak English by hanging out with locals, So, not to say that's the right way or wrong way talking about music.
But if you said like
Same
I
with
want
language,
to
too.
write a song that's like Joni Mitchell, then you kind of know what she uses. What are the tools?
Mhm.
Well, she can just, if she's got a chord in there that is memorable to you, and then you can work with that kind of chord without knowing what it's called or anything like that.
Yeah, no, totally.
Or a certain kind of movement a certain kind of motion that she works with, or flavor, and all these kind of.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what's
terms.
crazy about, I think, like our generation versus like the the generation of the '60s, and like our generation is so visual that like even my learning guitar or learning drums involves me like visually watching a lot now, whereas because of videos, whereas like back in the day you had to listen to the album and figure it out. And like now I can watch what he's doing on guitar and try to emulate it.
You know, you don't really like, a big part of your memory, your capacity to remember things, comes from being emotionally affected by it, which I think is also why listening to music is one of the, you know, if it really emotionally affects you, it just internalizes you, and you have to. I don't know. I think sometimes I just write music to process what I'm picking up, and like and then I go and seek out more music to listen to that gives me more inspiration on ways that I can possibly express how I'm feeling, and the way I feel is the way the song sounds.
Yeah, I would say that I actually probably utilize that more than like thinking and writing music theory. But yeah, it's like getting inspiration from artists and singers and gamelan musicians. Like it can come from anywhere. And I think that like I would say that's very useful, just as useful as learning, music theory and how to, play classical music, whatever, play gamelan music, play anything. I mean, just broadening your vocabulary in all assets of the music world, or aspects of the music world, I think is one of the best things you can do as a musician, as an artist, as a person, anything. But yeah, that's another thing too. I think is interesting. We're sitting here having our subjective perspective of like the best way to learn, and I really don't think that that's like
Everything's
anything.
situational. We talk about. I've spoken to you because you kind of taught me a little bit about recording, where it's a completely different art form. When you're playing live versus when you're recording, like
Yeah.
the skills you need are completely different. You need to when technique is so important when recording, and emotion is so much more important live. I feel like, and communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like in live, like messing up is kind of a good thing in some ways. Like it depends who you are. I mean, there's people that could disagree with me and say that's bullshit. They better be perfect when they sing. But like it is a different animal, just recording and doing live music. But man, I really just I just think that music is the music theory is just a very wide thing, and it's like sometimes it doesn't have to be the comprehensive Western tonal harmony. It can be listening to Joni Mitchell. It can be learning some music theory that was made by 5 people in Brazil in the 1500s.
But to your point from before, if I'm jamming with Jacob or Jake, what do you prefer?
Jacob. But
Jacob.
I understand that you're from the Northeast.
Yeah. So when I'm jamming with Jacob and I say like, okay, play something Jewish sounding, and when I'm jamming with Jacob, it's a lot of J's. When I'm jamming with Jack and I say play something Jewish sounding, he's gonna go to the klezmer scale. You're gonna go towards emotion and what that means to you. Whereas like
Interesting.
learning the theory, there's now a thing he can refer to. Or like if I said play something Indian sounding, he probably would think about those microtonal, what is it called?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't know what to think. I don't even know like what is. I mean, I guess I know what it sounds like.
Okay, play something islandy. You would probably do on the offbeat,
Yeah.
like shit like that.
Yeah. I don't know enough about Indian music theory.
Well, I'm thinking about like reggae. If I said
Yeah.
play something islandy.
Yeah, that's definitely a characteristic. Yeah, I think that music. I guess like I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to get to. Like, what are we?
We're just discussing different approaches and like.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think there's like arguments necessarily. It's more like we've just kind of been talking about different approaches and like what's more what's
What works
what
for
do we
you?
think is more practical?
Yeah.
What works for us?
That really is. It comes down to that, like just a perspective. Like there could be. I mean, what if? I mean, it's a hypothetical. What if Jimi Hendrix learned classical music? Would we have Jimi Hendrix music today? What if
What if Miles Davis didn't learn classical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good point. So it's like it's all subjective. It's all
It's
beneficial.
all what works for that musician and what they use within their toolbox.
Yeah.
Which then I feel like what's cool about now is you kind of like you start you need. It sucks. You got to be everything now. You got to be your own engineer, your own producer, the songwriter, whatever. But you also end up learning so many different aspects of recording that, like, part of theory that you didn't even know was like that is new skills.
And those are a lot of creative hats that someone gets to wear all of a sudden. So I think there's an opportunity for music to sound even more individualized.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely no argument there.
I think that's something interesting, like about just American. I won't say pop music, but I don't mean Britney Spears or nothing like that. But American music, American pop music, like whether it's
Popular culture.
Yeah, when I say pop, I mean like honestly, indie music, just
Yeah.
like Britney Spears, Post Malone, even like
Anything that's commercial.
Yeah, like is American and it has a fan base and like is followed, because like you could say, somebody makes pop music, but they like are in their bedroom and only 2 people have heard of them. They're not really popular,
Yeah,
but
that's
like,
a good call, yeah.
but they're still, it's like pop music, so it's like it's a fickle thing too. But what I was gonna say is like how a lot of music is influenced from churches. And like how a lot, especially like R&B music, a lot of R&B music is influenced heavily.
Because that's where they learned a lot of.
A lot of R&B guys, like a lot of fucking Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye. I mean, just like tons of guys and girls too, Aretha Franklin and like Mary J. Blige. Like a lot of them come from the church world. And so it's like specifically the black church world. And so like it's definitely influenced like the pop music of the day. And the rest of the music that has like a white demographic is definitely influenced by the black musicians in American history. So like jazz and R&B.
But you know what's
rock
interesting
and roll,
about jazz though?
blues.
Jazz is so influenced by show tunes. Like the early jazz.
I don't know about that, because like I'm thinking like jazz is influenced, I think, by it's like a mixture of like African rhythm, but also like knowing a little bit of Western tonal harmony in America and how Americans were utilizing it, but specifically blacks were using it different, and like it's like literally just bending rules.
I'm just thinking of like Louis Armstrong, like that kind of shit could sometimes sound like show tunes, but I know what you're saying. Like you mean jazz, like
from the 1800s. I mean, just
Shout
like,
out to
there's
the National Museum of African American Music that just opened up here.
Oh
in
yeah,
Nashville.
yeah. That's I need to go there.
You got to go. Get a membership. Go all the time. It's beautiful.
Yeah, dude. You could. How does it talk about jazz and like how old it is there? Have you been there?
Yeah, it talks about all
Tons
sorts
of
stuff. Yeah.
artists. And
It's a dense museum.
Yeah. Well, I mean, jazz goes back really, really far back, and it's definitely like late 1800s, somewhere around there.
Classical goes really far back.
Yeah, it does. But like also Gregorian chant and like cavemen banging on rocks. It all comes from that.
That's my
honestly.
genre.
Cavemen banging on rocks. Yeah.
You guys ever watch History of the World, the Mel Brooks movie?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
It's like at one point.
Oh no, I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
At one point, they talk about how music got started. And it's like a bunch of cavemen, and like one drops a rock on his foot, and he's like, ah! And the guy's like,
do it again.
and he throws the rock again, and he's like, ah! And then he keeps throwing the rock
It
on it.
creates a
and that's like the
rhythm.
first instrument ever.
Yeah. I mean, I really think that there's, music definitely had to predate history. You know, like people. As a matter of fact, there's actually. Oh, this is really cool. Leah's an anthropologist. She majored in anthropology, and they learned about, like, here's another music theory that I just thought of. I think it's like a group in Africa of people that play drums, and it's like a group effort, but you have to dance.
Yeah.
It's like something where if
part
you,
of the music.
yeah, if you're not dancing, then you're not playing the song, and it's like it's crazy. There's also a video that talks about this I think his name's Adam Neely.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah, he talks
The
about
bass
this.
guy?
Yes, that's him. He talks about that, and it was like like who is the arbiter of like what is music? Because it was like an argument to the Ben Shapiro thing, and he was like, "Let me tell you why Ben Shapiro is not right." So
I mean, but he wins just by the fact that he made a video. This Adam Neely made a video about it.
yeah,
Like, oh, now someone's talking about Ben Shapiro.
yeah. Well, it wasn't
He
necessarily
just made
like
a controversial statement for
Yeah.
that purpose, you know.
it wasn't even controversial. It was just wrong. It was like just
It's
philosophically.
It's a hater. Rap is not music.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It just like it. I know. I get it's trying to be like he was trying to probably just have a point, but yeah, it wasn't a very good one. Yeah, but talking about the groups and people in Africa that play drums, and if you're not dancing, you're not playing the drums, and that's a part of like their music theory. So it's like, how do we know that they're wrong? You know, they're not wrong. How do we know that the bird singing?
I
is,
hit all the notes right,
you know,
but you weren't
it's
doing
like,
the
no,
dance.
the bird's doing it wrong. No, it's not. Especially if it's getting laid.
If it's not
Hell
getting
yeah.
laid, it's doing it
Hell
wrong.
It's a marketplace. It's a busy marketplace. Like, the bird's got to do a lot, right? It's got to stay alive and it's got to procreate. And it's a busy marketplace in the forest. or
Music
whatever.
is so important in the bird world.
Yeah, it's got to also have a strict identity. It's
And
got
cricket world. Don't forget cricket.
because there's a lot of different kinds of birds and they can't all mate. So it has to advertise its identity
Mm.
and its virility
Hmm.
and its availability.
Bird theory.
So with that,
It's a good
I
thing.
say we wrap it.
Yeah, let me say something profound.
Wrap it like a condom.
Pee pee poo poo doo doo fart.
Shit.